Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger. I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, and this is the Domain Sherpa Discussion. This is the show where we help you understand what's going on in the industry by discussing news, trends, and of course, questions from the audience. We're joined by 4 industry veterans and thought leaders. From left to right, we have Adam Dicker, CEO of dnforum.com and nichewebsites.com, the company that will help you build, rank, and update your business website. Filling in for Rick Schwartz is Frank Schilling, internet entrepreneur, investor, and founder of the DomainNameSales.com platform and the registry and registrar, Uniregistry.com. Mike Berkens, publisher of TheDomains.com, co-founder of the Right of the Doc Consultancy, and founder of the domain marketplace MostWantedDomains.com. And Paige Howe, founder and president of the domain marketplaces JoeDomains.com and DomainOutlet.com. Gentlemen, welcome to this week's show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you joining us, Frank.
Hey, glad to be here.
Now, are you in the Caymans or some other location this week?
Newport Beach office this afternoon. On my way to London for the ICANN show. So.
Excellent. All right, first up on the show, Francois.
Hey, Michael, point of procedure. Don't all guest hosts since Amar have to wear bathrobes?
That is true, since Amar has been on the show. I didn't give you enough prep time for that, Frank.
I'll never forget the time that we were at a domain conference in California. Amar, we said we were flying privately to Vegas for afterwards, and Amar said, "Oh, I'll come too." So he gets in the plane. He goes to go to the bathroom, but the luggage compartment is inside the bathroom. He was trying to get into the bathroom, but he didn't realize he was in the bathroom.
So no, right out the back of the plane. Right out the back of the plane.
Yep.
You're trying to get in the luggage hold. I'm like, don't do that. We're flying. You know?
Nothing like a little bathroom humor to start the show.
Commercial. You don't have that trouble. Southwest, I've never had that trouble.
You're in the bathroom, Amar. This is the bathroom right here, all around you.
All right, first topic. Francois Carrillo, the entrepreneur behind Domaining.com news aggregation site, just launched a new project using the domain name lend.me. Here's how it works as I understand it. You need a loan. You make a request using the website, collateralizing the loan by a domain name that's held in escrow, a domain name you own that's held in escrow. You pay a $35 service fee to lend.me. Then lenders who pay a service fee of $90 per year, which is the premium level on domaining.com, get to view the finance requests and make proposals for whatever terms they want. And if any of the offers are of interest to you, you can select the offer, and then you basically go through the document process and get the loan. It strikes me as a LendingTree.com home mortgage model applied to domain names. So let me start with this question. By show of hands on this panel, who's made a loan in the past using one or more domain names as collateral? You've made the loan. You've provided financing. So a couple of you guys. What do you think of this lending solution? Is it a good offering for the marketplace? Let's start with you, Frank.
I think it's, nothing begets nothing. I think it's a good thing, and I love Francois. I love that he's trying new things. He's a consummate entrepreneur. I don't know how he does it in France with like 51% tax or I think it's like 88% tax in the meantime.
It's high.
But anyway, he's a consummate entrepreneur. I truly admire him for that. I think that it's, maybe too fee-centered. The price on the internet that people expect is free. And I think that domain names, it's not like traditional finance where you can get away with charging on both sides. I think this early, maybe it'd be better to go with a freemium model. But, it's his baby to try to get off the ground. Generally, I like it. I just think it's early days for like large-scale commercial finance for domains.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think?
I think it's a reasonable service. If somebody has a domain name and needs cash, their options are either to sell it as a sort of a desperate seller and get a much lower price than they can get. The other options out there are sort of domain capital, but that's, as far as I know, unless their policies have changed, it's a longer-term commitment at 15%. It's not something they will do for, a few months or 6 months or something. So I'm not, I think it's, I can see where it would work for both the borrower and the lender. Yeah. And the fees are low. Really, $135 on one side, $90 on the other side. I'm assuming nobody's putting up a domain, that's less than $10 or $15 or $20,000 in value. So the fees are minimal, and you provide some cash to somebody who needs cash, and they can keep their domain, and hopefully they can use the cash and get out of the situation they're in. And the lender can make a few bucks. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works out.
If I needed cash, paying a $35 application fee to see if I could get somebody to fund it.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem too high.
I think the pickle with these things is always the loan to value. It isn't like real estate. People think, oh, with real estate, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put, it's worth $100,000, and so you'll loan me $80,000, on that $100,000,
right.
And you guys should be grateful for that, and at 4%, So whereas with domain names, they're illiquid. The value is all over the map. They're very subjective, even on good names. And so it's difficult to kind of, to get that, because at the end of the day, if you don't make your payments, the lender's going to seek liquidity. And so that's always the problem. It's like you got to set a really, what's the word? A pernicious almost loan to value to protect the lender against the further downside.
Yeah, exactly. So if you come with a domain name that everybody agrees is maybe worth $10,000, the lender may not give you a full $10,000 because they've got costs in trying to liquidate it and paying a broker that they may use and all those other things. So they may only loan like $4,000 or $5,000 on it.
$1,000.
I think that's fair, though. I think that's fair. I mean, you have to have room.
I think one of the things that we've done by securitizing so many different types of things, and I'll just say I've taken advantage. I've been the lendee on these solutions more than the lendor as the other guys on the panel, and I actually put in a proposal to lend.me. So if anyone wants to loan our company money, but the way I look at it, Michael Milken did this first with junk bonds. He said, I have a company that isn't that great, but I'll over-collateralize you by 150% of stuff that's not that great, and you'll pay me a rate more than a treasury loan that is great, so I'll give you more stuff that isn't that great to package up and provide liquidity. And it's an interesting concept that's worked its way through to songwriter royalties and all kinds of stuff, where if you over-collateralize it so much, it actually makes that loan safer somehow to the lender, and that's how we got AAA loans in the mortgage crisis, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, I thought the fee was okay because it was more, to me, a barrier to entry of everyone just submitting everything, but much less like what you might see like an advance fee loan scheme or something like that, where it's $1,000 to promise that we're going to get you money and he's making money. I saw it more as just to make sure that somebody was serious when they put their application up. So we'll see what happens.
What's the payday loan run, like 30% or some ridiculous amount or something?
Yeah.
What's that?
A payday loan, like you bring your check in or payday advance. I don't know.
It's worse.
It's really high. It's like
and the
crazy.
stuff that they advertise on TV, I mean, we've the ones like Prosper and stuff like that. It's they can take like a year's worth of interest at 30%, but have you start paying from day one, so your effective rate is like 55%. Wow. So the ones that you hear on CNBC and the radio, where we'll loan money to small businesses and stuff like that, because you pay it back so fast, your effective rate is really through the roof.
So with this, I think that Francois is a pretty smart guy. I think that Francois is going to make a lot of money or some money on the application fees, and it's up to him or the lenders if anybody actually goes ahead and picks up that application. But regardless, he's going to make the $35 on the application fee. I probably would have made it a little bit higher. We've seen all kinds of stuff go through with things like science fiction and other names where they've taken money on behalf of domain names, end up losing them, and then there's a fire sale. So at the very least, he's going to make a good application fee, and he's also going to probably increase his domain portfolio, or the lenders will.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I looked at it and I'm like, oh, is he taking a percentage of the transaction or whatever? It seems fair. He's taking it on both sides, but it's a small $35 fee and a $90 fee. And if you were in the business of lending money to get access to view the deals for $90 a year, seems very reasonable to me. Yeah. He's playing a numbers game. He needs a lot of applicants.
It doesn't guarantee anybody's going to pick those domains to finance.
Right.
Just because they're on domain name, they have the right to look at them.
I recently had a guy with, legacy names. When we all started in the business, you knew these names. You looked them up and said, who owns this, who owns that, those kinds of names, right? And I was really surprised that this guy, out of the blue, said, hey, I need to raise some money. and I've got these domain names, and I'm short of cash, and he's overseas, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually talking to this guy. When I had no names, I knew about your names because I checked who owned them. These are like epic kind of names. But when it came down to it, the deal stalled on loan to value, and it's all because he didn't want to put up enough. I said, you got to put them all up, and because we're talking big numbers, 7 figures he wants. So I'm like, okay, well, you got to put them all up. And because if things go wrong, I don't know which one I'm going to be able to sell in order to get liquidity if you don't make your payments. He's like, well, I'm going to make my payments. I go, well, how do I know that?
We all feel like we're going to make our payments. Nobody goes into it thinking, oh, I'm going to default.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But at the end of the day, the deal didn't work. It was a lot of posturing and work. And I realized how hard this is because, on really big names, the ones that you would actually want to loan on, because you've got a liquidation value. Something epic that I can get liquidity at some level. Somebody will buy this.
Right.
We say nobody will go into a default, but if they get enough cash out of it, maybe they figure they couldn't sell a domain name anyway. So who knows?
And that's the thing. That's the kind of loan to value he was talking. It was like, I'll give you these 3 names, which we all agree are worth $1 million each. And I go, maybe.
I'm not sure we all agree they're worth $1 million each. Maybe on a great day.
$1.5 million in cash. So you can see how the stakes. If you've got $1.5 million in cash, and somebody wants you to part with it.
Yeah, in theory, it's different than handing over cash.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, if you don't think people default, go ask Domain Capital. People default.
Exactly. So he'll increase his domain portfolio over time.
Yeah.
So lend.me is a great domain name, but is that domain name going to bleed to lendme.com, or does, Francois, since he owns domaining.com and he does marketing, he can, and his users are high-tech, domain name oriented, is he immune to bleeding to lendme.com? What do you guys think?
I think over time, like initially everything bleeds to .com, but over time that will be less so as people get more used to I do think some of these country codes like .me, Macedonian, will come up in value as they become more accepted and normal. When they're out there all by themselves doing what they do, then they weren't as viable. But against the backdrop of all those new Gs that are coming in the next round that will come after that.
So when you say over time, are you talking like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What do you think?
It's tough to say. I think we're going to get most of these new extensions out by the end of this year. Our last one right now is GA in December. We've got a few more to settle that'll go into the new year. I mean, figure first quarter they'll all be out, and then so now there's nothing left to settle. So everybody's energy is going into his marketing. So that's all of next year. That's all of 15.
Not everybody's energy is going into marketing.
But at some point, people are chipping away at it, chip away, and it's gradual. It's like people laugh at first and write it all off, and then it just keeps going. And then over time, it just kind of takes on a life of its own. I do think, to answer your question, 5 years, I think 5 years it'll be much more normal. Oh, yeah, I've heard of one of those. And in 10 years, it'll be, of course. Why would I get this instead of I can get a .me?
Well, Mike Berkens just posted on thedomains.com that Facebook had acquired sling.me to be the online domain name for their Slingshot app, which is going to be a pretty cool looking app if you haven't checked it out.
I'm already, just I'm looking for it clearly. And so I'm Googling certain search results where I know there are new GTLDs in there. I'm looking at the search results where the URLs, and I'm just like, whoa, this is what the future looks like. And you can see a whole bunch of different, it's not just com.net.org, it's like there are new GTLDs in there in those search results. You can go to Google and you type, site : and then link, or site : .sexy. You can see other sites that are using that. And so you can search those keywords and then see in the list of search results, you can see what the future is going to look like, albeit on these very narrow band of search terms right now. But it's coming. I think 5 years, very much more normal. People you ask men on the street, they've heard of it. 10 years, of course, everybody will know it's an alternative. Just because all the infrastructure will start to shape itself, like all the sales sites, all the whatever, will just start to naturally gravitate to sell those products where they can make the most money. And there's a lot of elasticity. The registries have a lot of elasticity in pricing that .com doesn't have. So it'll get, but .com will go away.
Yeah.
So,
I think it depends how you market it. So everybody sort of points to overstock, and the O.co thing is the negative. The people who are against the GTLDs and against anything that isn't .com point to O.co. And I mean, it's a fair, it's a fair argument, but again, O.co or Overstock spends, tens of millions of dollars, advertising on television and mass media, but there's other, Francois is not doing that. So, I've always used the other example, which is something that is advertised, but advertised in a different way, not advertised on national TV day and night. But take a look, when you get a chance, everybody, at alabama.travel. It's a site that I saw advertised in the movie theater. That's how I first became aware of it. So it's the official travel site for the state of Alabama. And if you go there, you'll see that it has a 6 out of 10 page Google page rank. It has an Alexa score of 302,000. It has a Quantcast score. It has traffic. And if you go to alabamatravel.com, it has no Alexa score, no Quantcast score, no compete score, no Google page rank, no nothing. So, yeah, if you're going to advertise something, with millions or tens of millions of dollars on national TV or cable TV, there's going to be leakage. If Francois is going to put len.me up on domaining, there's going to be no leakage, zip, zero, none. I mean, they're not people are going to click on the link or they're not going to click on the link, and so it just depends what you do with the thing to some extent right now. But long term, people will get used to seeing different things in mass media, and I agree. But right now, I think you could do it in a way there's almost no leakage.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, you build a lot of businesses. You use domain names. From what I understand, you use mostly .coms. Would you, if you were running a business like this, would you build on a .me, or would you buy the .com as well to prevent that leakage? Or does it not matter, like Mike is saying, that people, his audience gets it and he's not going to have that much leakage?
Well, I agree with Mike that his audience isn't going to get him. The only one that's going to find him right now is domainers for the specific purpose of what he's looking for. I did look at alabama.travel while Mike was speaking, and it is a beautiful site. It's a great site. I do believe that these extensions, like Frank said, 5 years from now will become much more mainstream. And I just want to go over a quick topic that people keep asking about, and I know Mike Gilmore just wrote an article, and I want to talk about while Frank's here just for a minute. I know it's not on the topic list, but he wrote an article saying that 95% of the new GTLDs won't be successful. But I think we need to talk about what we've talked about on last week's show, that Michael and I and a couple others made a good point, that it doesn't need to make billions of dollars and become mainstream right away for it to be successful. It's run as a business. It just needs to become profitable. And then it has time to get that market saturation and stay profitable and increase its profitability as it goes on. But for it to be successful, it doesn't have to become a .com. It just has to
that's a great
have some quality sites on it, some quality businesses, get its name out there, and it has to make money for the registrars. But I don't believe that 95% of them will fail. I think most of them will actually do well. And like Frank said, if they put a little bit more marketing behind it, they're going to do even better. But I just want to be clear that nobody thinks that, well, maybe Michael Gilmore does it, 95% are going to fail. But I think that there's lots of time. And if they're patient and they understand that, like Frank and some of the other guys do, that as long as it earns a profit, it's successful. That's what any business is judged upon.
Yeah, I mean, and successful against what optic was the first thought I had. And you made the point brilliantly, Adam. That's exactly it. It doesn't have to be .com. We were talking about marketing and how much Overstock spent on O.co and what a fiasco that was, and everybody went back to the com. And a couple of things the one major thing that kind of struck my mind is that, in the future, if you've got like millions of sites, millions of individual sites, and they each spend, $1,000 on marketing, their regular marketing, course of business marketing, that helps lift all spaces by virtue of the fact that, you don't need one site spending $1 billion, could spend $1 trillion and still not have the impact of thousands of sites that everybody's looking for, everybody spending a little bit. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this fulcrum approach, so that if everybody's doing it, then it becomes more normal. Whereas if one company's doing it, it becomes this outlier that you have to market. You can't spend enough to market. Because no matter how much you spend, it'll never be enough because you're the only one doing this. So, oh my God, everybody else is doing .com. And that's really what .com is. All anybody did with .com was spend their $8 for the .com name and then build their business and run it. And by the virtue of the fact that everybody is doing the same thing, it reinforces .com. But as the problem is, I'm part of the problem. I own a lot of good .com names. We're all part of the problem. Everybody who owns more than one great name. And so it removes those names from the mix. And so if you want to start a business, what are you going to do? You either go for something really hokey and long.com with a number in it probably, or you go out and you look at one of these, hey, more viable.link, more viable.furniture if you're in the furniture business, more viable.pizza if you're a pizza delivery. And then over time, you spend your $8, $10, $12 on your name, just do your thing. And over time, the world kind of comes to you because you're changing it just by the course of business and becoming part of a new, growing, changing reality. And it takes time.
Yep, definitely.
And I think right now, for those of us that try to make money right now, a good .com comes with an attribute, respect, prestige, and a history. And if you knew the future, if you really knew what the paper would say in 2018, it would tell you how many new GTLDs to buy or how many not. So once you take your supposition and say it's going to be true or it's not going to be true, then I think you can act and you can go invest. But right now it's a detriment. I think you bring with yourselves a burden to explain why you got a certain name and how it's the same. And then over time, we're still teaching these corporations that, my gosh, what if you went away from branding and had a marketing campaign under improveyourlife.com differently than the name of your company? They're still just getting that after 15 years. So I don't necessarily see, I just keep telling myself, they're not going to switch overnight to adopting these new ones. It's probably going to take longer than people think and won't happen overnight. So, it still comes with a detriment now. But someone like Francois, his strength is I've already got the relationships with all these domainers, so it is going to be through a link. So he's not looking for the domain name to give him the prestige. But if I was getting in that business, I may have to come up with lendme.com to be able to say, even though I've never been in a domain business before, I want to sound like I have been for a long, long time. So that would be my strength, and all it costs me is a little money to get the prestige. But boy, if my strength were technical or my strength, and all I just need the domain name for utilitarian value, then I've got more options now.
Yep, definitely.
The last thing on that is, on Francois' situation, is he's selling a product to domainers who are, I think, a little bit more predisposed to consider, at least, an alternative TLD. Whereas if you were selling to mass market and having to take Super Bowl commercials, selling a product that everybody had to deal with, then you need to come more to your product. But I agree. If I were a domainer today, you weight your portfolio to what sells, and what sells today is .com. And so you wait. It's just that you just don't leave. If you can get it registration price, dictionary word meaningful something else, and you can get it for registration price at like $10, whatever it is. We're going to put .click out at $6, and we're going to, because we had such a bad start with .link, this time we're going to release everything and buy back the stuff we really wanted later that people left. So we're going to handle our land rush a little differently. Yep. But so there is a chance, like you could go out and get a .click for, not a strong namespace, I'll concede, but you can get San Francisco .click, and you can get it for $6 on launch if you can be fast enough on the ground. Somebody will, But so you just don't leave that, but you don't make that the foundation of your business in 2014 or 15 for that matter, or 16 probably. You make that as something you hold on to for a rainy day, and one day it'll be worth more than the $6 you paid, and that's domaining, right? And it's about,
because it's not like, it's not like he picked any .me. He still picked a really good .me that I doubt. Yeah. It wasn't like he went and bought it for reg fee at GoDaddy that morning, and he had a choice between a $1 million .com or a reg free name. .me has been allocated with market pricing for a while, so he still had to, pay up to get the .me, but it's a really good .me.
Yep. It's a great name. It's a great name, and it's perfect for what he's doing. So you couldn't do better.
Yep.
I think.
We wish Francois success in this new venture. I've asked Francois multiple times in the past to come on Domain Sherpa for an interview. He always demurs because he thinks his English isn't good enough. I'm offering again, Francois. I want you on. We'll get a translator. You need a translator if you want. So
Hey, I speak fluent French.
So post a comment and say, Francois, I want you to come on Domain Sherpa for an interview, and maybe we can get him on.
I'll post it in French.
Post it in French. Next up, CentralNick, the publicly traded company on the London alternative investment market that raised about $10 million back in 2013 to acquire interests in new GTLDs, has spent some of its financing war chest on acquiring a domain name registrar, internet.bs. Reuters reported the deal was a mix of cash and stock, maximum consideration value of about $7.5 million. Kevin Murphy over at Domain Insight clarified that the deal was for a mixture of $2.7 million in cash, $2.5 million in newly issued shares in CentralNick, and up to $2.3 million in a performance-related payout. So they're looking for some sort of growth, and if they don't hit any growth, maybe they won't get any of that performance-related payout, but if they do hit a ton of growth and meet their trajectory, then they'll hit the full 2.3. The word internet, of course, is a killer word for any second-level domain. .bs, of course, is the internet country code top-level domain for the Bahamas. Paige, let me start with you. The deal seems like it's not in CentralNick's core competency of running registries. Do you think that it was a smart acquisition for CentralNick to diversify and get into the registrar business?
Probably. There's very few registrars out there. There aren't that many in the U.S. There aren't that many even worldwide once you get out of the top 10 that you could buy. So for them, I'm sure with the new TLDs, we deal with them. Their front-facing site for .la is www.la. Mm-hmm. I think it could use being much more robust. So if this is a way for them to bring in that last mile, what we might have called the last mile in connectivity, they're now establishing themselves with the last mile instead of being, having the registrars have to do their heavy lifting. They may feel they need to go direct to customers. But I also think it seems like the European internet companies, and I mentioned this yesterday, seem to have to show profits more than the U.S. companies, where you almost brag about how unprofitable you are when you go public. So I think that type of consistent, predictable revenue that a registrar gets, as we've seen with Two Cows and some of the other ones, really helps a publicly traded company. So I would say, in my opinion, that's probably a reason to do it.
Yeah,
I'm going to say maybe they saw the show we did last week when Mike and Paige and I were talking about the co.com thing, and maybe they've decided to diverse a little bit. Who knows? Because I think we scared a lot of people on buying those.
Yeah, I think this is a natural reaction to a lot of what we did the same thing. I think we were the first to do registry, be a registry, have our own registry infrastructure, and then have a viable. When I say viable, I mean a viable front end registrar. Be married with that, and I think you're going to see others try to emulate that. That in the future, consumers won't think of it as a registry. They will think of it as a registrar that also runs a registry in the back end. The registry will be this more benign element that powers it all. I think if you ask the average person on the street today who makes .com, they'll say GoDaddy. I got my domain at GoDaddy. GoDaddy makes .com. They have no idea about registrar. It's the retail store. And so if you're a naked registry, which is what CentralNick is, they're a back-end registry operator, it's in your best interest to create that retail store because you want to own the customer. Steve Jobs taught us that when he opened the Apple Store. Mm-hmm. You've got to have your own distribution. That said, you can have there are different levels of that. You can have a front-facing store, but you do most of your business through a dealership network, which is what the existing registrar network is. You can't play favorites as a registry operator, and on the contrary, you're probably under more scrutiny from regulators and your competitors to act fairly towards all registrars equally. So,
right.
But that said, you need to have some control over distribution. It just doesn't make sense that you could Google in 2014, get a link name, .sexy name, whatever name, and then not get to a retail page. Come to a page of other, like if I, before all these new GTLDs came out, I actually Googled get XXX name, and I came to the official registry for XXX. And then, of course, when I dug far enough, I got to the page that said, click on your favorite registrar. Well, that just, just feels wrong. There should be a buy now, enter your name in the box, and close the deal.
But Frank, you said Steve Jobs taught us that, retail is the sexy part. Retail is, everybody needs distribution to the end user. But we saw before Steve Jobs, HP tried it and went bankrupt. Best Buy tried it and went bankrupt. Time and time again, retail stores are losing money and they're going bankrupt. What's to say that CentralNick, that this is a winning strategy? How do you make a winning strategy for a registrar? And, I'll ask you because you're doing it. What do you think is the winning formula?
I'm clearly biased, but I think this was a bad purchase because I think it's bad to buy a registrar. I think you've got to want to do this. You got to put your heart into it. You got to, we didn't just sort of go in our own case, speaking for ourselves. We didn't sort of go off half-cocked and say, oh, we got to have a registrar. Let's go get a registrar and plug it in. And that's sort of the disease in this business is everybody takes existing pieces that are, and let's put them together. The moniker snap names years ago, they had, the secondary marketplace and a registrar. Let's put them together. Logic makes sense, right? But they didn't execute. They never really came together, and now they both kind of blew apart. Snap names has been sold off. Moniker tried to be reinvented and floundering. You got to have heart and passion and want to build these things, because registrars are incredibly complex pieces of equipment, really, in the way they function, and they need to do things in the way that we all expect they do. If you think about the business logic, and you actually go through and walk through the amount of business logic that goes through making a registrar, delightful and easy to use and intuitive. And that's hard stuff. And so, in our own case, we sweated it really hard, and we built our own from a clean sheet of paper. We wanted to have something faster that we could bolt additional pieces on, like our sales platform, integrate it, and come up with a really killer end-to-end product when we're done. You can't buy those pieces and sort of cobble them together. You get a Frankenstein of a registrar, and I don't like it. Personally, that's why in our case, we built our own. But
no pun intended, Frank.
That said, I do wish CentralNIC well. They're taking a risk. Clearly, nobody starts out. In the immortal words of Rick Schwartz, who's not here with us today, when you sail from New York to London, you don't go wrong in the middle of the Atlantic. When you take a hard right and wind up in Africa, you go wrong when you leave the harbor with the wrong sail, right? And Rick is so right. And I think buying an existing piece of infrastructure that isn't all that great, and then or which is okay, but has some good people behind it or whatever, but really is just okay infrastructure, and then marrying it with a registry is not like a recipe for success.
But if they've got 28,000 customers and they've got a free cash flow of $730,000 a year as of December 31st, 2013, those are some pretty, that shows me that some people are happy using their system.
Sure, but that's all, as we've seen, that's all totally disruptible. It's the light from a dead star, right? So, I could go out and offer, on .com names, total cost, just naked cost, and take all the customers over some period of time, over 2 or 3 years. That's not a business you want to sell to grandma, You want to sell something that adds value along every step of the way. I'm not saying I haven't seen their business plan. Yeah. I'm not. It isn't my goal to try to, or anybody else's goal to try. No one company can take all the business. Even if I wanted to try to take a big piece of business, you're not going to be the solution that everybody wants. But over time, anything that the only reason they're with you is because of price is a bad thing. You got to provide additional ancillary services that grow the pie and improve the. And lift the space, in the process. That's so much. That's where it gets interesting. But you know what? I don't want to second guess CentralNIC. They may have, some great business plans and be able to.
We're not privy to those, of course, so we don't know exactly what they're thinking.
Maybe really great, And as I said, there's room for everybody. This is a growing business with a growing pie. In general, though, I much prefer a clean sheet approach because you get a better product.
Well, and I do have to say, I've been a little amiss at signing up for a Uniregistry account, but I did sign up yesterday just to check it out. And I don't have any domains in there yet, but I got to say, Frank, your team is doing a pretty awesome job. It's a beautiful, simple, easy to navigate system. And, we've talked about that, Adam, on, I'm not sure if it was on the show. There's another registrar out there that a couple of you guys love that I couldn't quite figure out how things work. And sure, I may be the dumb person on the block here, but I think I'm more of an average user than most of you guys or all of you guys. So, and those are the people that you're trying to get for your registrar. But anyways, kudos to you and your team, Frank. Next up, we cannot go a week, much to the dismay of Paige Howe, without talking the new GTLDs, or as Frank likes to say, the new Gs. So let's discuss free domains. For the last couple of weeks,
for Frank, it puts G's in his pocket.
Well, at the moment, it sucks them out. It's sort of the opposite of that.
For the last couple of weeks, we discussed XYZ and how they opted people in to take in domain names. I don't want to discuss that. I only want to mention it for context because we're discussing free domains. Andrew Alleman over at Domain Name Wire reported this week that .berlin more than doubled its zone file on Monday, adding 67,000 registrations to hit a total of 116,000. They were offering, basically, a registrar was offering limited up to 50 domains per customer at first. 101 domain then started giving away domain names, and it's still going on. Konstantinos over at Online Domain reported until this Friday, June 20th, anyone can register up to 100 .berlin domain names for free. And you don't even have to meet the local requirements. 101 Domain will throw in their trusty service for free as well. So the question that I want to discuss is this. In the minds of non-domain investors, do you think that giving away domain names soils the TLD, or does it encourage more use? What do you guys think?
Michael, before we even get to that question, I just like updated information.
Yeah.
So, when I took a look at the zone file the other day, there were basically two registrants, which are both domainers. One is associated with United, the whole CDU group, the United Domains group, and there's another German domainer. So between the two of those, entities, they had more than 50% of all, .berlin domains registered.
Right.
And I wrote a post about that. So today, Andrew just wrote a few minutes ago, since we're live, we might as well chat about it, that .berlin has now canceled the free domain giveaway.
What?
They have. Yes, they have. So says Andrew. So they have now scrubbed it because, in essence, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, on a very, on some basic level, it does make sense. If you're going to give away domains to get end users to adopt them and to build sites around them, and in a city of 3 million people, if you can get a lot of, people who live in Berlin and own businesses in Berlin to grab domains and build sites around them, either as personal identifiers or for business, then it kind of does make sense. But the way it rolled out is that there's basically domainers that grab the majority of them. So in that case, it really doesn't make sense. So they have now canceled it. So if you can really restrict it, if you can really get to where you want to go, which is to get end users to grab their own their name, their business name, a couple of family members' names, and call it at that, then it may work. But it doesn't. There's no way of controlling it, so it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing you interrupted that, Mike. It just killed the topic.
Thank you.
But I think it shows how little foresight is going into these plans if they can cancel them based upon, well, I had a morning meeting where it sounded like it was an awesome idea, and then someone else gave me a different take at lunch, and I decided that's it. And you just, you don't have a sense that they're really like, boy, we've really put our time and effort into figuring out exactly what we want to be and what we want to do. It's more like, well, go read the blog comments post, and based upon that, we'll know whether we're successful or not today.
Well, nobody knows nothing.
You're quite welcome, everybody.
Nobody knows nothing. Hey, you didn't kill the topic, Mike. Contrary to what Adam thinks, now I'm thinking conspiracy theory. Did they give away the domain name so that the sister company of Cedo could gather up as many as they could for free, and then now they're going to sell them for a premium price? And then they turned it off as soon as they got all the good ones.
He who has the greatest ability to make money on the upsell kind of wins here. So obviously, Google, a free domain with any $12 AdWords purchase, that type of a thing. They will be in a great position. Anybody who has any ancillary product, you're a hosting company and you've given somebody a free name because they're going to buy hosting from you. We're going to give away free names. We are. It's coming up here very shortly, but it'll be with a paid Gmail account. So we make a little bit on the Gmail account, just enough to offset the, and it's a great product. You're gonna pay for Gmail anyway for a domain level Gmail account. So you get a free domain with it. And we could you could do that. And you have the registry and the registrar working in a close marketing relationship.
I mean, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm more of a people do stupid thing kind of guy. So I don't think .berlin probably opened this thing up so CDU's sister company can register a ton of them for free. I think they probably opened it up thinking that people in Berlin would register it for themselves or for the businesses. Mm-hmm. And 2 days into it, when it was sort of blogged about on domain blogs like the domains that's not in fact what happened. Mm-hmm. They decided it's not working the way we intended it to work, and we're going to cancel it.
Yeah.
Probably. There's some truth there.
Yeah.
Well, once again, Mike Berkens this time was not only the first to break the news, he broke the news a day before people are going to hear about it. So he's before the news happened.
Exactly.
Killjoy, I think it's called.
So, Frank, you've said that you're gonna give away free domain names if people pay for a service, which is what a lot of hosting companies do. They're not. The price of it is basically baked into the cost of the service. Maybe it's a loss leader to start with, but you're going to keep them for a certain period of time. Something like email, if they use it, they're going to keep it maybe for their life. I don't know what the average is, but it's got to be high. What TLDs are you going to offer that deal with? All of the Uniregistry TLDs?
Just .link and .click, those two. So those are our two lowest price strings. Those will be the ones where we have the greatest elasticity. It's tough to do at link because it's tough to do that and make money because Gmail's not expensive, and Google makes most of the money when we charge for Gmail. So so we're just doing it on our margin on the Gmail, and we get a customer, which is worth something. We have the ability to sell them a future product, sell them another product, bring over their other names, grow. We're trying to build a long-term business.
Have you set your pricing for the Gmail service yet?
It'll be comparable to what it is on through Google Apps directly.
So about $5 a month.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think I didn't want to speak out of school, but it's like $50 a year, so it's actually less than $5 a month.
Cool.
$5 a month is 60, right?
60.
So,
yeah, a little bit of discount. Hey, Andrew Alleman over at Domain Name Wire finished his story yesterday talking about Berlin saying, quote, "Poor .club. It's doing things the old-fashioned way, charging people for legitimate domain registrations," end quote. Do you guys feel sorry for other TLDs that are fighting the good fight and trying to get real registrations at full price?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's tough. It depends on the TLD. Like there are going to be some good TLDs that come out, and they're going to charge full registration price, and they're going to get sold. But some of these where there are other alternatives. .buzz, .click, .link, they all kind of feel alternative, and none of them feel like great. Like, oh my God, I have to have this one versus that one.
Yeah.
So on those, I think you have a lot more. It's a lot harder to get those placed if that's your only string.
Yeah.
I feel their pain. I know how much work all this is, and so I do feel their pain. I do feel sorry for them. That's your question.
But domainers don't, I mean, no offense, Frank, but I mean, the registry business is different than being a domain investor or a domain registrant. So, to our side of the ledger, since I'm not a registry, I think it's to the extent that registries by and large adopt a free, domain name policy. Hope maybe Berlin learned a lesson and will turn it around. It's really hard to sell something you own, like a .com, for substantial dollars when there's a million other things available for free. So I think it devalues it, makes it a much harder sale for the domain owners and the domain investors. And so it's troubling for me because we all knew that Google would do it, but I didn't think we'd see so much free stuff going on initially before Google. So I think the audience is really concerned with that they own domains and that they're trying to sell the domains and they're trying to make money. And so to the extent that there's millions, if there's millions or tens of millions of domains for free, then it's going to be really tough to start selling some of this stuff, possibly. It gets harder. It doesn't get easier.
I think it shifts. I was thinking about that this morning, and we still make most of our revenue stream selling premium.com names. But I think it shifts. As you'll get demand in the new stuff, and then demand will wane in the .com stuff. To date, we haven't seen demand wane. So we're still doing big dollar deals. We're still doing. We did like in April. We did a bunch of names for $4.5 million. No one or two outliers, but it was a great month. And then and May was strong too. So and that's all ComNet legacy inventory. That's not new stuff. And then just this month, we had our first sort of premium sales, if you will, and we've given away some names too on the new G stuff on the premium names. So I guess it's a shift, right? It isn't like a switch where all of a sudden the new names come on and the old names are worthless, and like that. It's sort of this gradual over time, and the key is to participate on both sides. You can't be a domainer and say, well, I don't like .com. then you're not a domainer, And so similarly, you can't be a domainer and leave good unregistered premium names at registration price. If it makes sense to take them, you take them, or somebody else will, and they'll become the domainer, and you'll sell out eventually and go away, or just be another, part of a growing pie.
It's easy for you to say, Frank. You own all the good .coms. All right. Paige, last topic on this topic. Final word.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm not against new TLDs, but I don't want the volume of time we spend to make them seem like that's what everyone should be doing out there, because I think, as Frank just mentioned, what's happening now and what's working now and where commerce is happening now, as we see each week in the weekly reports, is still in the ComNet legacy space. Yeah. And to think that you're going to flip new TLDs in 4 months because the whole world's going to change so fast that you're going to be able to buy a bunch, and then, that's the only time when you see me be a little negative is just on the time we spend. We're going to launch a new site about new top-level domain names, but it's kind of like make your decision where you're playing, which playground you're in, and then decide to go forward. But boy, the time to decide if you like new TLDs isn't when you have $1,000 a year premium in your cart and you're trying to decide whether to pull the trigger, and then you say, well, I wonder if they resolve on an Apple tablet. I mean, that's not the time to decide about the whole big picture of new TLDs. You should make your decision first about how you're going to allocate money and whether, what you think about it before you get into the store and have stuff in your cart and you're at the checkout line, and then all of a sudden you read an article on the front page of a magazine that says new TLDs aren't going to work till 2018, and you're like, crap, what do I do? And so,
well, I agree with everything you said, but there's one thing I would add. People laughed at me when I bought .com names in 2000. Okay? So you got to, and we all remember that time, Mike. That must have happened to you. And so you tell people, I bought a bunch of these .com names, I paid $40,000. They were like, well, good luck with that. You just pissed all that $40,000 away. You should have put it in something else. And so the thing is, it's just like the wine business. Getting the vintage Farniente starts this year when they cork it. You put it away in a crate in your basement, and then you do a victory lap 10 years from now when it's 10 years old and it's a great year, right? And that's sort of the domain business. You got to have some part of your war chest. You sell a name for $10,000, well, you take 9 of it and go spend it on, puppies and jewelry, or new .com names, and then you take the 1,000 of it and you go out and buy some new GTLDs, and then you put them away for a rainy day, and you just put them away in a lockbox. Make sure you get some good ones, and you do not buy names at premium prices. This whole I do not advocate. I've told everybody at every turn, do not buy a name that's going to cost you $1,000 to renew. Buy a name for $1,000 that's going to cost you $10 to renew forever. Yes, but buy a name for that's viable.
Yeah,
but do not
cash
buy a
flow
name.
Is key. All right, we need to move on from this topic because we only have 13 minutes left. Last topic of the new G's: Namejet and Right of the Dot are teaming up for a global auction to take place next week at ICANN London. Mike, you're a director of Right of the Dot. Can you share some of the details of this auction? What can people expect?
Well, I think it's a social event, so it's going to be late in the afternoon on a Tuesday in London. There's going to be food and drinks and World Cup games on the big screen, and there'll be an auction as well. So, I think the important part again, what Frank just said, is that none of these names are going to have premium prices on registration or renewals. They're going to have normal pricing. So, people can judge for themselves. I think there's some really good names. I made sure that about at least more than 50% of the list had reserves of 5,000 or under. There's a bunch of no reserve names. There's a bunch of names that have $500 or $1,000 reserves. There's a few, big price domains, but not hugely priced. And the most important thing is that they're all, be available for registration, renewal on a normal pricing basis going forward. So, I think it's a good event. They're launching. They're trying to make their mark and sort of stake their space. And I think it's good overall. Yeah. And the auction isn't the end all be all.
Yeah. And I can't be there, Mike. Can I still participate in the auction if I'm not attending ICANN?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some pre-bidding going on right now on Namejet. So you can go Namejet. And you can pre-bid, and there'll be online bidding for the actual event, and there'll be some post-bidding for those names that don't sell. So If you can't make it, don't worry, but we can't get the drinks and the food to you through the computer somehow.
Darn it.
But we're working on it. If somebody can, Frank will do it, though. He'll figure it out.
Pick up a six-pack and sit at your computer. Where do they go to find the link to the live auction online?
They could go to .global.info or to the domains, and we'll give you some other links after the show's over. You can post on.
All right, cool. All right, I've got a question from the audience, gentlemen. Max wrote last week, can you guys offer some general advice on trademark plurals? The word taser is trademarked, and on this week's Domain Sherpa review, we talked about tasers.com, which Adam, who has dropped off, and Paige will talk about, and said that you shouldn't get it because it's trademarked. But then Drew said that apples.com would be fine to purchase in the named yet auction, yet Apple is trademarked. How do you reconcile these singular, plural, trademark contradictions when you guys are looking at investing in them? Who wants to take it?
I mean, I would agree that tasers would be probably potentially in violation of the trademark, and apples could definitely be less so. I mean, I don't know what other use there is for the term taser or tasers than the product. Apples obviously have lots, there's apples. So I think that's actually the right conclusion. Mm-hmm. That's my piece on it.
Yeah. It depends what you use it for. If there's another viable, defensible use that's generic and unrelated to the trademark, generally you can use the name for that purpose. This is not legal advice. Please seek legal advice. But yeah, in my experience watching trademark law around domain names over the last 10 years, or 15 years now, it's if you can find some other viable use for it and it's defensible for that purpose, use it for that. But the minute you start to advertise tasers and the product that saps you, to immobilize you chronically, you're violating the trademark related to that, because that's.
And what else is there other than a taser?
Right, and Taser made up that name for their product, so the plural is an extension of their trademark. Whereas apples, I can have an apple buying group. There are apple growers. There are it's our state fruit here in Washington, baby.
Right. I think what you could do. The only way to defend tasers is to become an authorized dealer, as the Weber Grills case showed. You can become an authorized dealer and then use it in the course of your business selling tasers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're not an authorized dealer, good luck with that.
Yeah. All right.
It would be great. It would be great to test the fair use concepts of that in a case, so that we could know as opposed to stay away. It would be great to see fair use explored like that.
I agree. This is an evolving trademark law is an evolving beast. There are some dogmas. There are things that we can and can't do, but there's stuff constantly being shown. Just a couple of years ago, when we got the latches ruling on a deal book, we defended against the New York Times. They had a trademark. We had deal book. They just never enforced the trademark. We won because they weren't enforcing the trademark under the doctrine of latches. As a trademark owner, you got to defend your mark, and they didn't for many, many years. We used it. So I mean, there's that. I mean, if you could, and we used it for an unrelated purpose, but they argued. But anyway, but that whole concept of latches in a domain dispute was unprecedented at that time, and so that's new. And so things are constantly happening over time. But generally, we all know what's right and wrong. If it looks like it's wrong, it's probably wrong. Just do it like the sandbox approach. If you're making the other kid cry, you're probably doing something wrong.
All right, next up, as we discussed on last week's Domain Sherpa discussion, Google is getting out of the adult business and turning away advertisers who use their Google AdWords platform, forcing them to find another source of traffic. Mike Berkens, you mentioned to me in an email today that you've got some information on this topic that might benefit some industry domain name owners with that have adult-oriented domain names. Can you share that information?
No, I actually chatted with Mr. Schilling, since he has a parking company, last week about when they announced this. And actually, they didn't say they were getting out of the business. They were just limiting greatly the way that these things could be marketed and what could be put into the advertisements for these sites. So I think Frank probably can shed some light on what he thinks is going to happen. from this.
First thing I think is funny is, I've been around a little while in this space, and so one of the things I've learned along the way, I knew one of the largest adult operators in the world, 13, 14 years ago. They're a lot of these guys are the same players, but it's an evolving space where there's some very big guys who got really big, then they move on, and then other people come in. It's like any business. But anyway, Google, in its earliest years, made most of its revenue selling adult advertising. You didn't advertise this from the rooftops. But I knew some of the dollar amounts that were flowing through to early Google AdSense and to Google Ads. And I mean, Google made we're talking like 25, 30% of Google's operating revenue in the very earliest years, going back to when they started selling ads, came from just the adult ads, because those were the first guys to latch on to buying ads, and this concept of buying pay-per-click was adult. Clearly, Google grew quickly, but I find it ironic that they would leave that part of the business. But my theory on that I shared with Mike is, I actually think that Google, in a way, and this goes back to Rick Schwartz's philosophy, which I think is true as it relates to adult, is sort of with the better traffic, the cream rises. And so if you've got type-in adult traffic, that's very valuable, but that's being held down by bid prices that are kind of sort of laundered through this homogeny. You don't get like just keyword type-in traffic under a big adult term. You get this mix of third-tier networks and blind links and other traffic in the partner channel, and it's not and search itself in the Google search box, which is high quality. But so you get this mix, and it dumbs down the price. Whereas on some of these really big esoteric keywords, that traffic is so valuable on a per-click basis because you can get very high conversion rate for sign-ups, joins, and people joining on a credit card renewal basis for services. That traffic is so valuable that I think it's actually good that over time there'll be a new ecosystem that evolves to take that traffic in. The traffic won't go away. It's not like scorched earth and black and white, where Google has left the market, there's no one to buy it, and so nobody ever will. It doesn't work like that. A newcomer will come in, step in, grow in the space, and then we may actually see Google come back to this space one day. But I think there's some sensitivities always around adult, and there are certain advertisers who don't want to be associated with companies that work with companies in adult because they have religious views on the matter. And, but I don't think it makes this traffic worth less. In fact, I think it'll maybe in the short term it does. And if you're an adult name buyer, it's a buying opportunity. But in the long run, I think there's a new marketplace that'll evolve for the traffic, and you'll find a way to make money selling that traffic.
So if I own adult domain names, Frank, and I'm parking them at internettraffic.com through the domainnamesales.com platform, are you looking as that platform operator? Are you looking for new ways to supply traffic to these domains that are parked with you, or what do you do in this case?
Yeah, we're trying to find backfill providers who we can monetize through.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be when you have a large enough block of traffic, we can go ahead and do direct deals with different adult networks. We don't have any. We think adult traffic is part of the landscape. We don't have any personal views on that matter. Clearly, we want to make sure it's legal and ethical. But other than that, we'll monetize adult traffic in a proper way. And we view it like the cable company does with the high channel 976, 977, 978. It's just part of the network. Or you got the sports channels, you've got the adult channels. It's just part of the spectrum.
Yep.
And we certainly don't want to. We welcome adult traffic as long as it's legal and ethical.
Yep. All right. Adam, next up, 4 top-level domains are entering general availability this week, or have entered: .community, .cleaning, .catering, and .cards. The registry for all 4 is donuts.co, which may indicate why I hadn't heard that they actually went into general availability. Did you buy any of those, Adam?
No, I did not.
None of those. What about the rest of the panel? Frank, Mike, Paige, did you buy any .communities, .cleaning, .catering, or .cards?
Cards? Did
Cards,
you say
yeah. CARDS.
Yeah, I think that will do well. I didn't buy any. No, actually, that's not true. I think we bought one of each. We bought Uniregistry.
So Donuts sold you 4 domain names in those 4 new TLDs. You didn't do the block from Donuts?
I'll have to double check that they've all been bought. Yeah.
Well, this doesn't air until tomorrow morning, so you got a couple hours.
Oh, good. I got some time. I have no excuse then. But no, I mean, some of these, there are definitely opportunities in those spaces, but there's definitely buyer fatigue going on out there. I would think, and so you've got to have, and that's okay, because no one will get them all. There will be some other domainer who will step in and pick up those names, and some good ones. And
hey, buyer fatigue is an opportunity for other investors, right?
Exactly. It's a growing.
I think that's when the success of a new TLD will happen, is when no one's looking for it. Is when, organically a community or people, can get stuff, can work with stuff, can make it, and then we'll see one happen. It may not happen because that's the one that a bunch of domain investors thought would be the one, and the registry obviously thought that it would be the one. It may happen that way. But we ended up putting out, it'll be out by the time you see this tomorrow, everybody. We ranked the next 3 months of the Donuts TLDs, and so we didn't think that any of this week's ranked above a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. So there's some more stuff coming later.
So where do people go and read that page?
NewTLDs.net.
On echo.newtlds.net.
What did you say, Adam?
Echo.newtlds.net. So he had issues, so not Page's issues though, but they were all about Echo domains.
Gotcha.
You
mean
Eco.
Echo, sorry.
Yeah.
My Canadian accent.
You
sorry.
Canadians.
Gotcha.
XYZ.
Gotcha.
Hey, Mike Berkens, you bought a few of the domain names, didn't you?
Yeah, I bought some .cards. I mean, I think there's some. I mean, unfortunately, most of the bang-on actual ones, things like credit.cards and Christmas.cards, things like that were obviously reserved. But I think I particularly thought that was okay. It wasn't, I didn't go in extremely heavy on it. But I thought there was things like, gold credit.cards and platinum credit.cards. And some other stuff that we got, I thought was okay and definitely brandable, definitely could get ranked in SEO. I mean, if you can get, anything credit card related ranks really high. I got, I think, cash back, cards and cash back credit cards. So, I mean, I think, it has potential of doing something. Community.
Hey, Mike, just curious, how much time did it take you to go through those 4 TLDs and decide which domains you were going to register? Just the process of determining, going through, thinking about the words, thinking about phrases that people use in society, what's in advertising, and not even the registration time, which, of course, you're going to go paste them in. Half of them aren't going to be available, or most of them, or whatever. How much research time do you spend per TLD?
I mean, some of them I disregard, to be honest. I mean, I didn't spend any time on catering or cleaning or even community. So the only one I even looked at was cards. And, I mean, basically, I think it's a long-term play for me. I don't know how anybody else feels. I don't, I'm not a flipper, so I don't expect to register a name today and sell it a month from now or 3 months from now. I don't even think about it. So to me, it's a multi-year play, 5 years maybe down the line. So if I like a name, if it's good enough to spend, $50 to register, I'll spend $150 to get it on the day 5 and just go grab it and not have to.
What I've been doing, and I've heard you talk about this on other shows, that I haven't been on. And I've watched you talk about, what you got on any given day when there's been a GA. I got to tell you. Totally straight up, no BS. I think you're totally doing it exactly what Mike, the way he talks about it, the way he's doing it. This is exactly textbook the way you should do it. You don't spend more than you can afford to. You just bide your time. You don't back up the truck and take everything. You just have your strategic kind of go-to strings, and you spend a few hours, and then one day you will look back and go, I only took a few hours of work and the time to warehouse it and pay the renewals, and now I'm in the money. And that's how this business works. That's how we did it in .com. You don't break your back. I mean, I did for many years when we were getting the drop stuff, but then, at some point you take your foot off the accelerator pedal. You just methodically bide your time, and the key is to repeat. It's not, you don't make, these guys who start out with no domains in a forum, and then they show up 2 weeks later and they've got 1,000 domain names, and then they never get more than 1,000 domain names. So their entire business was built during a 2-week window when they went crazy and said, I'm going to get in the domain name business. We've all been there, right? But that's not how you build a great portfolio. You build it a name here, a name there over time. You're going to methodically apply yourself. Use that same brain power expand it over a long period of time. And that's what makes a great portfolio of domain names. It gives you this legacy.
Yeah.
It
And in
gives you-
financial investing, it's the same principle. You invest a little bit over time. It's called, what's that called, Paige?
Dollar cost averaging?
That's
Dollar
it.
co-
Yeah, you're not buying all of it right at one time and it's high and it's low. You're trying to time the game. You're doing your dollar cost averaging over time.
I mean, you have to, it's hard with the new GTLDs. I mean, there's some registries like Frank's, to his credit, that, don't have premium price domains, but there's others like Donuts that do. So, for example, something like birthday.cards. So that obviously is a good name, but it was, it's restricted, reserved, whatever. It's on the ICANN list. You can't get it. So if so I went for happybirthday.cards. So that was a name that was available, doesn't carry a premium price. I spent an extra $100 to get it on day 5 rather than go fight the masses on general availability. So, happybirthday.cards, I mean, yeah, it's a good name, I think. Or, things like, player cards or players cards, which are really popular in casinos. And if you pay, a couple
I like some of those.
Yeah.
I like the short.
All right, I've got like at least 5 other topics that we didn't get to on today's show. What we do at the end of every show, Frank, is if you have anything you want to promote, you're going someplace, you have a special domain name that you want to offer for sale, you're launching some new product or service, anything you want to talk about for 15 seconds, we usually just run the line. Let's start with you, Adam. Anything going on that you want to promote?
Not really. I'm just happy that for once half the panel is actually Canadian, so I'm happy with that. I'll stick with that and be happy with that.
All right. Frank, anything you want to promote?
Just get a Uniregistry account. We have lots of new stuff coming. Integrate by basically summer. We're working hard over there to integrate DNS. That'll be done by the end of the year. It'll be epic. Pardon the pun. It'll be a really great platform when we're all done with it. That's the last mile to be able to integrate all your sales functionality inside the registrar. It'll be really delicious. I finally moved all my O&O names from iRegistry, where they lived since 2003, over to Uniregistry, and that completed yesterday.
As of yesterday. So if we go look up how many domains under registration at Uniregistry, what number will we see now?
I think it's like 450,000 or 500,000, somewhere in there. So, and we're growing. We're outside accounts, more people joining. It's nice to see. It's very rewarding. You should all have an account anyway. And I think over time it'll be your go-to consolidation registrar as you get used to it.
Mike Berkens, anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to promote the .global auction next week in ICANN. So that's going to be a good event. If you happen to be in London, you can go stop over. There's going to be a social, hour and a half of drinks and food in the World Cup, and so it'll be a good time. There'll be an auction. If you can't be there, check out the names on NameJet. There'll be a way to bid remotely. At crazy prices. There's some good, I think, really good domains at reasonable prices. So go check it out.
Cool. It sounds like fun. I wish I was going to London. Paige Howe, anything you want to promote?
We'll put some more names in Domain Outlet. We'll put a couple. I just bought a new TLD. We'll put it up in the outlet. So come on down to the outlet. And,
all right. All right. Go post any questions you'd like answered on the next show in the comments below. And be sure to mention Francois. We want you to come on Domain Sherpa. Adam Dicker, Frank Schilling, Mike Berkens, and Paige Howe, thanks for coming on the Domain Sherpa discussion, sharing your insights and expertise, and thanks for continuing to be Domain Sherpas for others. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you.